Welcome to tonight's web class. Tonight we are going to talk about personal identity and why we need to understand its role in our lives. Thank you for joining me. I'm Keisha Golder, and I help women define their unique purpose so they can live a life that they created on their own terms. I also created the Your Life Purpose Makeover Journey. This is a 3-stage, 9-step program that I'll get into a little more later on. I just want to remind everyone that there will be a question and answer section towards the end of the presentation. So if you could hold your questions until then, I would greatly appreciate it. Before we jump into tonight's topic, let's recap last week. Last week, we discussed creating a meaningful life, what that looks like, and how we can create a meaningful life. We also talked about how balance and wellness in our lives, in the areas of our lives, can contribute to us living a meaningful life, and how when we find our purpose, that can also help us live a meaningful life. This week, we are talking about personal identity, what it is, what makes up everyone's personal identity, and how our personal identity affects our lives. Let's jump right on in. What is personal identity? Personal identity is your idea of who you are. Some people call it a sense of self. It can also be your distinguishing personality, the thing that sets you apart from everyone. And yes, of course, we all have a unique personal identity, but sometimes you will find that you have things in common with other people, but everything is not the same. So how we see ourselves actually determines kind of everything else in our life. If you see yourself as someone who is a go-getter and is always going to get what you want no matter what, then 9 times out of 10, all throughout your life, you are going to strive to get whatever it is that you set your mind to it. If you see yourself as someone who, for lack of a better word, is not as smart as everyone else, you rely on other people to help you throughout life, then 9 times out of 10, unless you make some changes, you are going to always rely on someone else to help you or to make the decisions for you. So there are 2 types of identity. There's a personal identity and there's a social identity. Your personal identity really answers the question when someone asks you who you are. They are looking for you to tell them your personal identity. But social identity is different in the fact that it's how other people see us. We can't control how other people see us, no matter how many times or how often we may want to change how we're seen by others. So our social identities are based sometimes on the roles we play in our communities, the goals we have as far as career-wise, how well we do in school. They also can be influenced by society in general. And these categories are used to place us in boxes. So if you are a person in your community who's always helping someone, then your social identity is a helper. You may not see yourself as a helper, but that is the identity that your society has placed on you. Now, personal identity is a real straightforward answer. It's just how we see ourselves. Now we get to what makes up our personal identity. All of these things can help create our personal identity. Some of the things are how unique we feel, what values we hold, how we view our bodies. Do we compare ourselves to others? How do we compare ourselves to others? Our personality, and of course, our personal goals. There are also other factors such as family and loved ones. Family plays a big part in your personal identity because they are often the first people we come in contact with. They are often the people that we get our values and belief systems from. They are the people that we get our culture from, our ethnicity, our race, and they are also the people who can either hold us back from opportunities or push us forward to opportunities. Think about it. When you have when you have so often seen the people around you do things in a certain way, you automatically embed it without thinking of it. And you find yourself doing the same things that those other people do. Now, it could be different for you if you grew up in a household and your personal identity, or you identified yourself the same as the people you grew up in your household, but you were presented with an opportunity that they had not been presented with. For example, going to college. So that's breaking you out of that stereotypical personal identity that you have just because those were all the things that you've known. Because you're no longer exactly in line with what you have seen, because you had the opportunity to go to college when no one else has. So that is setting you apart to really create who you are yourself. Another thing that can affect our personal identity is music. And I know some people do not believe in music affecting us the way that, it has been displayed from time and time again. But really think about it. If you really listen to music nowadays and look at all of the things that are happening, it is affecting us, and we are identifying with it more because these are the things that we want to be. This is how society can affect how we see ourselves, because we see all of these glamorous pictures and hear these people singing and rapping about the things that we don't have, but we want. So we are going to identify with, these are the things that I need to do in order to get that. And sometimes most times, those things are not the right things to do in order to get to where you need to be, but you don't know any better because you're being influenced by the music. Now you're probably thinking, well, why is personal identity important? It is important because it is an essential part of anything that you are going to do in your life. Like I said, in my makeover journey that I created, one of the very first steps that we deal with is getting to know, helping the person get to know themselves, helping them to get to really know their personal identity, because that lays the foundation for everything else. It's essentially like building a house. Without a strong foundation, then your walls are going to crumble, your floors are going to not be level, and they're going to creak. So when you know who you are and you are strong in your personal identity, or you're strong in your sense of self, no one is able to deter you from what it is that you want to do, and you know that is good for you. When you have a strong sense of self, when someone comes along to try to tear you down, you're not going to crumble, because you know that whatever that person is saying to you to bring you down, you know that that's not true for you. That could be that person projecting on you. So personal identity and the sense of self holds everything else in place. And without it being strong and without really knowing what it is or what it looks like for you, then you're not going to be able to find your purpose. You're not going to be able to live the life that you want to live because you don't know who you are. And essentially, without knowing who you are, you really don't know what it is that you want. Now that we've figured out what makes up our personal identity, how does it affect our lives? Personal identity affects our lives simply by whether or not our self-esteem is high or low, and it also affects our decision making. Think about it. If you are in a house growing up where you are always praised for doing well in school, you're always told that you're pretty, you're always told that you are the best at whatever it is that you do. 9 times out of 10, your self-esteem is going to be extremely high. The opposite is true as well. If you're in a house and you're always called stupid, you can't do anything right, you're lazy, you're a bum, your self-esteem is not going to be as high as the other person. And these are the ways that we're identifying ourselves by these things that other people have told us. Because, like I said, family is an important factor in how we identify ourselves sometimes. If you aren't able to make decisions for yourself, chances are that you identify as an individual who is not strong enough to make decisions or has made wrong decisions in the past, and you're holding that against yourself so that you feel that you're not strong enough or you're not able to make the right decisions now. That's not necessarily true. Just because we've all at one point made a wrong decision, but that doesn't mean that we're horrible decision makers. So the more strength and the more you work on knowing who you are, building your personal identity, building your sense of self, which we've talked about kind of before. You can do that by identifying your values, strengthening your belief system, getting rid of limiting beliefs, and all things like that. That's how you get a stronger sense of self. Those things will help you make good decisions, build your self-esteem, be able to walk into a room and not pretend to have confidence, but honestly and truly, deep down inside, feel confident and be able to show it without thinking, oh, any minute now, somebody's going to know I'm faking it till I make it. You don't want to go through life always feeling like I got to just put on this face just because it's expected of me and not really genuinely feel it. So I hope that you are going to think about how you really see yourself. Take some time, and you can take 10 minutes. Just use this one sentence, and you can, I'm going to start it and you finish it. I am. And write it as many times as you want. I am beautiful. I am smart. I am a track star. I am the next neuroscientist. Whatever it is that you want to complete the I am with, that you feel is your personal identity, do that. Make sure that you always revisit that in times where you may not feel as strong, so that you remind yourself of who you are and you're able to carry yourself through life confident in everything that you do. Because like I say, your personal identity, sense of self, whatever it is that you want to call it, is the foundation for everything else in your life. Does anyone have any questions at this point? Okay. So, as always, I love to keep in touch with everyone. You can catch me on Facebook at Coach Keisha Golder, on YouTube at Keisha Golder, LinkedIn, Keisha Golder, and of course, my website, KeishaGolder.com. And next week, we are going to talk about purpose. I am the life purpose makeover journey lady, so why wouldn't I talk about purpose? We're going to talk about what it is, why we need to have purpose in our lives, and how it adds value to our lives. I hope I gave you insight into how we do or we go through my Your Life Purpose makeover journey. Like I said earlier, it is a 3-stage, 9-step program where we dig deep to help you get the foundation, to build the walls, to put in the floors of your house that is going to make your life better, that is going to give you your purpose, as well as allow you to live life on your terms. And that's something that we all want. We don't want our lives dictated to us by the next person. We want to be able to live on our terms and in our time. Thank you guys for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next week.